All right, it is 5 o'clock and we'll get rolling. Liz, if at some point you can't hear what I'm saying, go ahead and say something.
Okay.
or wave and throw stuff.
And angle the camera a little bit more back the other way. Perfect, right there.
I was gonna say, is it like, that's what my kids do with me with stuff. They say, no, a little bit more that way. No, a little bit farther the other way. They're grown, so they figure that's funny. All right, let's just start jumping into stuff and get going. Sick leave bank, replacing sick leave sharing. You guys,
Yes.
as far as wording and configuration stuff.
Yes, so we found some language that we liked, changed it up a little, and Jamie has copies for you guys.
Perfect.
To look over. I would like to add, we kind of talked as a committee after it was all printed, and
Thank you, Jamie.
so we were thinking, what if something comes up and you do have somebody who has an extenuating circumstance? You'll notice that in the requirements or the limitations,
The conditions of use.
Conditions, yes. Conditions of use, it's talking about how you can only request 30 days per event. We have had some instances where an immediate family member has been very ill and someone has had to take off multiple days in order to care for that person, especially if that person is a minor. And so we were just maybe wanting to add in there that extraordinary circumstances will be considered on an as-needed basis by human resources.
Not a committee. We think that HR could.
Just that way it's a neutral, objective. Okay. We'll get back to this. Okay, that way gives us a chance as we can get through stuff, then maybe we'll be able to get to that and take a look at it. Disciplinary procedures. And you guys gave a couple of examples, and thank you guys for finding those and getting them. I don't know that at this point that the board really is interested. We would probably prefer to maybe table that and add that to a conversation next year, potentially.
Could we ask reasoning, please?
Well, I tell you what, we might be willing to come back to that, but we'd like to get through other stuff. I think at this point, we still kind of feel like that are things that should be able to be taken care of administratively. And I don't know that we need it in the negotiated agreement. Not to say that it wouldn't be considered, but I think at this point, we'd like to have more time to maybe study and see exactly what we'd want to do with it. Number of duty days, C. I know that you guys, and I'm going to paraphrase this, and if I don't get it right, let me know. I think kind of in a nutshell, you would like designated time set aside specifically for in the negotiated agreement for online trainings and things of that nature, so that they didn't get booked on top of each other. And again, I think the stance is that's probably something that should be able to be resolved administratively. And I know you guys said that in the past, that has not been the practice. What I think we would ask would be for you to allow us to try and fix that. This is, we've got some different people in some different positions. So I think this might be a good time for us to be able to move to where that would be more consistent. And I think rather than have it in the negotiated agreement, we may be able to just say, hey, don't book stuff over the top of this time frame, if that makes sense.
So we talked as a committee after our last session, and we felt like this was one thing that we could kind of see your side on. So we would be more than willing to put this off and keep and look at this another year. However, we are going to be asking kind of people in buildings to keep track.
Absolutely.
To some of the things that are going on in the buildings to make sure that those kinds of things happen. And
Yep.
if it's not an issue anymore, then
Right.
you know, we'll.
And that's exactly what we would want. We would want to get that data so that we would be able to determine, hey, this is a bigger problem and we didn't solve it the way that we thought we were going to be able to as quickly and as easily. But certainly one of those we can put on the burner and have it come up and be an item for next year, definitely, if the data demonstrates that. On the discretionary leave, I think here is where we're at. I know that you guys, and again, I'm going to paraphrase this, so you guys fix my poor wordsmithing if that's the case. Your idea would be that there would still be sick leave, but the 12 days awarded each year would be discretionary. If they weren't used, they would roll over into sick leave. The board would only be interested in the further discussion on that if you guys were to be willing to drop the sick leave buyback and put the total cap of days at 100. And I understand, and I think the board understands that if that's not something that you guys are willing to do, and you guys gave a good explanation of why, I think at this point we would prefer to just say, let's leave it as it is for right now. You guys have 7 sick leave days and 5 discretionary. I know Auburn Washburn's 8 and 4. So you guys are a little bit better off in that regard right now. And if we can't come to that agreement, I think maybe we just put it off and we'll kick it down the road and see what we do next year.
I did have a question on that.
Sure.
So we as a committee talked and we all agreed that we didn't see an issue with capping at 100 as long as the people who currently have over 100 were grandfathered in like we had talked about.
Right.
So that part of the agreement is not part of an issue, and we're willing to do that part of that proposal. But Mr. Wittig, the last time we had talked, he had mentioned something different with buyback when I had said about not wanting to get rid of it, and I just didn't know what that something different was.
So there's several districts that have a plan in place that is a stipend. It's a set amount based on the number of years you've worked in the district. And so, for example, to be eligible for the buyback, I guess, or the stipend, you had to work in the district for a minimum of 10 years and then retire from the district. My recommendation, if that's something you're interested in, is to come up with a scale. So, for example, when you had 90 to 100 days, it was a bigger stipend than if you had 80 to 90. It was kind of a graduated scale.
But you would only get it if on your retirement.
Correct. It was tied to number of years in the district and retiring in the district.
Except that currently our teachers can benefit by still being able to sell back 100, so that doesn't change what our current negotiated agreement says.
Right. This would be a set stipend.
And last year when we talked about this, the board seemed very supportive of us doing more discretionary days. And actually, it was because of COVID why they said they couldn't agree to it. It was one of our last meetings that we had, and they were very supportive of it. So I'm just kind of curious why the change.
I think just the uncertainty on cost, and each year, the sick leave buyback, you know, I mentioned it, it's a little over 51,000 on average. When you take a look at that, I think the idea for the district would be that that works out as a safeguard if we don't have the sick leave buyback for the extra additional cost from those days. And with the rest of the package we think we've got put together, that would just be where we're at this year. Jill's making it hard on me trying to remember back an entire year.
Well, we have notes on it. I
Yeah.
think Jamie, even like, we were really pleased with it, that the board was supporting that. And that's why I asked.
Right. And again, I think it's something that we don't it's the classic never say never. I think I fully expect that you guys will ask about it every year. I would think that you should. I think just the circumstances being right at the right time would be the big thing.
The only thing I would add to the buyback is you really have less than 30% of your employees that are able to participate with the buyback right now. And so, you know, the most in one individual at this time would be about $700. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well,
Minus if you're retiring with 100 days. But, you know, in negotiations, you certainly want to try to keep what you have that's beneficial, which the buyback is. But if you went to something like a graduated plan, you still would be able to reward teachers for having days in the district up to 100. But let's say if you had 90 to 100 days, it was a $3,500 payment. And yes, it would be less, but then could that money that you save go back into the salary schedule? Because that's really what we want to try to do, is create more opportunity to take the monies that's going out maybe to fewer individuals and reutilize that in a salary schedule that goes out to 100% of our employees. So I think being creative and looking at things that we have in existence in the negotiated agreement that we can modify, we can keep maybe at a different level, but then again, if you're at 50,000, let's say it's $60,000 at the buyback every year. Well, if we're spending 60,000 every year and it's going to less than 30% of our employees, could we, I don't know, put $200 on the base for every employee? Now everybody's benefiting from that $200 versus less than 30%. That's just my frame of reference, or, you know, my thought process is we should really look at what we do and how can we benefit everybody when we get this put together.
right. If we didn't see an uptick, which you never know until you know, the ability to put that in going forward into the salary schedule would benefit a larger number of people in the long run, I think is the point. I'm going to guess, though, at this point, you guys don't want to drop the sick leave buyback.
Not at this point.
Okay, so we would say we'll table that for next year. Liquidated damages. We had suggested moving from 750 to 1,000, 1,000 to 1,500, 1,200 to 1,750, and 1,500 to 2,500.
We don't necessarily disagree with liquidated damages. We're just wondering if we could hold off that conversation until maybe towards the end.
Absolutely, you bet. I'll put down the word hold on that, and then later on I'll look at that and I'll have no idea what I meant on it. So, all right, I think we had a tentative agreement on the wording on the payroll deductions and also the cleaning up the language for the pool for the counselors. I think that was okay. Head wrestling, 18%. I think we've tentatively agreed on that. And assistant girls wrestling, 13%. And 2 PDC chairs at 1.5. That would be an elementary and a secondary. Got to write myself a note to make sure that I don't sit there later on and have to holler at Liz and say, hey, what did I say again? Okay. One of the things that we would suggest is that we probably, with head cheerleading, we probably are low compared to some of the other districts. And that was one of the supplementals that we would suggest moving from 10% to 15%. which would increase that by about $6,300. How do you guys feel about that?
We are in favor of that.
Okay, so we can tentatively agree on that.
Yes.
Okay. Now, this next one is one that we have percolated on. And as you guys know, SPED is a high area of need across the state, and it is difficult to find teachers. So what we are proposing is that for low incidence and behavior teachers, we would raise the stipend that they have from 4 to 8%. All interrelated special education teachers, which is basically all the other teachers, would go from 4 to 6%. And then all the other folks that receive the SPED stipend but aren't in one of those categories would still remain at 4. And again, part of this is retention, and part of it is also an attempt to be able to be more attractive as we look to hire other positions.
Well, I mean, I'm lucky and I have 3 SPED teachers on my team, so they know much more about all of the low incidence and behavior and all of that. So I think some of them might have some questions about that. But
Sure.
before they get there, could you please just, for everyone else, explain what the difference is between a low incidence behavior teacher and an interrelated SPED teacher?
That's her. She went.
Like what is considered low incidence and behavior?
I'm going to let you answer this, Jill, so that I don't screw it up.
Well, I think that we have an understanding of, we have different rooms based on the level of students that are in it. But I guess our question would be, what really are you basing it on the room? If the room is called a low incidence behavior or what the teacher has? Because our interrelated teachers also have low incidence and behavior kids in our classroom. So I'm considered an interrelated, so is Jamie. But
Right.
we still have low incidence and behavior kids that come into our classroom. Like I'm teaching a low functioning math class next year. So am I considered a low incidence teacher for that hour, or am I considered an interrelated teacher?
And I will warn you that I'm probably going to be out over my skis on this a little bit, so bear with me. I can tell you that with the conversations with Mrs. Raines, there are probably less than 10 teachers that would fit into the low incidence behavior.
Correct.
Does that sound about right?
They are
And then-
classified as the teacher, but that doesn't necessarily mean an interrelated teacher isn't working with the students that they have.
Right.
Yes. Like there
Okay.
are certain buildings that might have an interrelated and a behavior classroom, other schools do not. So if I have, like if we only have related services interrelated at our building, I have to deal with all the behavior kids. I don't have a behavior room, I'm just
Sure.
interrelated, but I still have the behaviors. And I've also inherited kids that were from like the autism room to my room, but then when they go to middle school, they go to
A different situation.
yeah, because there was no other room in our building.
Well, let me throw this out. Again, this is kind of the first time we've talked about this in particular. At this point, would it be easier if we said for all special education teachers that we went to 6% without the differentiation on the low incidence and behavior, that we just did that? And then obviously the folks that are maybe, and you tell me if I'm wrong here, the other ones would be like SLPs,
Correct.
counselors, those
Yeah.
type
Yep.
would remain at 4%. That may make it easier and cleaner to do at this point. Any thoughts on that?
I think we would definitely need to, like, when we caucus, that's something we'll talk about. Just because this is our first time discussing it.
Sure.
We hadn't had a chance to really talk about that as a group.
And I really appreciate you guys recognizing the importance of retention and making our district more attractive for those. We need special ed teachers. We have a large amount of students that have these needs. And so I appreciate when we've talked about it for many years, actually increasing that sped percent. So.
Well, and
special ed teacher,
I will tell you, I unfortunately for James and Sherry, I get to work with them quite a bit here, especially recently, and they genuinely care and want the best for every teacher and every staff member that we've got. And this is an opportunity where we think we may be able to do something, but that's one of those. What we'll do is I'll amend that to say it would be 6% for any special education teacher. Go to from 4 to 6, and then all the other folks would that are currently receiving special education stipend would remain at 4. That may be a little bit cleaner and easier to do. And we'll let you guys talk about that. Salary and salary schedule. Our last proposal from the board was 1,400 on base and cells. Steps BA and BA 12 would increase to 300 from 175 and 275. Increase health insurance contribution $15 more a month to 430. And in exchange for that, it would be an additional 2 days on the contract, go from 184 to 186.
So we started looking, and we don't have the current, I had asked Marty at the beginning to have a list of teachers and what cells everybody was on. And we kind of went through that list and counted who all was on BA, who all was on BA 12, BA 24, and so on and so forth. And I don't know who's moved over and who's left. So, my list isn't going to be completely accurate. But we were looking, and it was said at the meeting last week that 67% of our staff is at the BA and BA 12. Looking at just what Marty had given me and looking at just the columns themselves and not the cells, we did not come anywhere close to 67%.
No, and I'm not sure if I said that I spoke wrong. It's 67% would get more than a $1,400 annual raise. Not necessarily that they are on one of those two columns, but that they would receive at more than 1,400, if that makes sense. And if I said that, as Liz, as you know, it's the only thing harder for me than typing is trying to talk sometimes and having it come out as clear as I'd like it to.
Okay, so who wouldn't receive more than 1,400?
Everybody would. No, excuse me. Everyone would receive at least 1,400.
And then you're saying 67% will receive.
Roughly 67% would receive more than 1,400 because
And
that
is
when you,
that because of step and lateral movement?
yes. Right. And the $300 as opposed to the 175 and the 275 to 300. The big idea on that is really to make us more attractive as a district to teachers that are in those categories and to try and reduce losing them to other districts because they can look at it and say, hey, this is my second year and I make $175 more. Now we know that frequently we're able to do more than that and the cells go higher than that. But for somebody that's a first, second, third year teacher, and in those columns, they look at that and I'll be honest with you, 175 is not very much.
No, and we don't disagree that the current step, especially in the VA, is much smaller than it used to be, and $300 would be a vast improvement in that. And it would definitely go to even back out those steps after a couple of years of not having those evened out. I guess my concern is that while that is good for those people, the people who would not be getting the more than 1,400, and you're still adding 2 days to theirs, are your people stuck at the bottom of VA 12 and or VA 24, and your people stuck at the bottom of MA 45. You're still adding the 2 days to them, but they are not benefiting from that increase in staff. So we do appreciate, because we want to teach with the best teachers too. But the best teachers aren't all new teachers. The best teachers can also be veteran teachers, and we want to keep them. We have had multiple teachers leave and go to other districts specifically for pay. And so we want to make sure that we can hire the best teachers, but also that we're keeping the best teachers once they're out of that VA 12 range. Once they get that master's degree. And so our proposal or our counter then would be, because our last proposal was 2,000 plus the 2 days. And then the money on the insurance and step and lateral. Our new one includes the money on step and lateral, the 1,500 towards insurance,
$15.
$15.
I'll take the $1,500.
Yeah, I wish we could do the 1,500 on insurance, but
That was a good, I like that one. I would take
yeah,
that.
you would. Yeah, right.
what happens when I've got things going on.
$15.
So $15 second lateral, 1,800 on the base, and we love putting the $300 and making it a $300 step in the VA, but our proposal is, okay, so what we did was we went through and it's 150 essentially that you're adding
Between the two columns.
between the two columns. Okay, and so we went through and we divided that differently. And so our proposal would be to add 75 to the VA instead of what you had added, and then to add the other 75 to the MA 45.
Which currently that's at least $900 on each step on the MA 45.
So it would, yes. But also on MA 45, our MA 45 does not come close to where other districts MA 45 come, or where their top of their salary schedule comes.
You can kind of see though that doesn't help narrow the equity on all of that. Because you would go, what you would have would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the first steps on MA 45 are 900. And then it goes to 1,000 all the way to Z, and then that's 1,200 on the step. And again, I didn't make it, but that's the way that the steps break down. From MA 45E to F is actually 1,100. And then it's 1,100 for each one of those steps all the way through N. And then from N to Z is 1,200.
Correct. But if you add even just $75 a step to those, you're still going to get your people who are topped out closer to other places, other areas, other districts that we have around the area.
Okay. So now, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize.
No, you're fine. I'm done.
Your counter is 1,800 on each step and column,
Plus the 2 days. Yes.
plus the 2 days. And the idea would be to add $75 to BA column
Yes,
and 75 to MA 45.
correct.
And the $15 a month. Do you like that one?
Yes, yes, yes,
On insurance?
correct.
And that would get 2 additional days.
Yes. You know, one of the things that we heard most back from teachers, and that I have said to multiple people who have emailed me, you know, they asked, why is SEA supporting the 2 days? You know, why are you supporting adding time onto our calendar? You know, why are you increasing our workload? And we have always said, you know, this has come up, you know, adding 2 days or 15 minutes has come up. This is, I think, the 3rd year in a row, maybe even 4, that it's come up. And every time it comes up, we have always said, we are willing to look at it, but you need to pay us for it. And my response to them has been, they seem to be willing to really want those 2 days. They seem to be willing to look at and increase the base pay accordingly. And so that has been kind of my defense on the 2 days. You know, when you break down how much an MA 45 teacher makes topped out versus how much a brand new teacher makes a day, you know, there's over $100, no, almost $100 difference between the two. With your proposal of the 1,400, neither, I guess in our mind, it would be less than what they are currently making a day. Like just the proposal, because a new teacher would make, I'm not saying the 1,400, because Lord knows we don't make $700 a day. But you know, our initial proposal was $1,000 on the base, and that was without adding days. Your counter was 1,300. You're up to 1,400 on the base, but in our minds, still, that's $400 for the extra 2 days, which, if you divide out, is $200 a day, which is not what a brand new teacher makes a day for us. Now, if that's not the way your mind was going, I'd love to hear thoughts, but that's kind of where we're at right now.
Well, I tell you what, if you guys would be willing to give us about 10 minutes, I'd like to meet with the powers that be and have a visit with them.
Yeah, and then we will also talk about the website.
Perfect.
Well,
Do we want to talk about the other stuff that's on?
Well, we also have the ESSER that we need to talk about. I
And the
know,
extra duty.
in the extra duty. Have you-
Yeah.
Before we,
I think with the ESSER, we can do it quickly. The ESSER, I know that we brought that up with the directors today. And I think that there are some ideas on that. And we were able to get what Auburn Washburn had done, which looks as though what it says is that their teachers give a verification that they've done additional, at least, I'm trying to remember this, at least an additional 20 hours of work between August 15th and like December 1st or something like that. And then they do another one that's between like January, whatever day they come back, and April 15th-ish. And again, it's the same thing. not unlike what we did last year, Liz, with the stipend, in December. We just sent it out through the Talent Ed records thing, and teachers verified, yes, we did the extra work, which I don't think there's any question with all of COVID and all of that. I would say, I don't know that we have a definitive answer on that at this point. And I know that that's one of those things that with ESSER 3, there's supposed to be all stakeholders. And I think certainly what you guys have said is not off the table by any means, but I don't know that I have an answer for you, or we can have an answer right now. And in regard to extra duty pay, I'll be honest with you, for us to be able to afford the offering that we have from the board, I don't think we can do anything with extra duty pay this year. It doesn't mean we can't look at it as we go down the road. And I know it hasn't changed in a decade, but it is, I think collectively we'd agree it's probably more important if we can do things on the salary schedule that benefit folks than the extra duty pay, at least this year. Any questions? Okay, I've got 5:37 or so, and we'll try to be back at maybe 10 to 6. That gives us a little over 10 minutes. I'm slow. All right. Thank you, guys. Doesn't have that on there.
Oh, we've seen her a lot the last year, trust me.
Okay. Here's kind of what we are.
No, do we want to wait for Liz?
Oh, yeah. I just said something about that and then,
I heard her talk like that.
Yeah. That was my favorite part of the hybrid learning day. Maybe my only enjoyable part was like when kids would have a pet. It was just like-
Yeah,
I mean, it's freshman level, so really, I probably shouldn't stop class and interview you about your cat, but
Well,
I'm
I'm
going to.
Something new.
I had to do it
Yeah.
in my advisory, so it's like a cat day or like favorite thing in your room, so go get it.
oh, I was just on Safe Kids Worldwide's conference last week and my cat's jumping up in the middle of it.
Well, I do, I talk about my pets in the normal school year, so I always want to.
We let, at our staff meetings, you know, our Zoom staff meetings last year, we encouraged people to, you know, show their pets.
Talk about Princess, but-
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of cats crawling across
Wait, she was
desks.
my support dog when I was in Oklahoma, you know that, right?
Yeah.
But I took her to that,
Yeah,
they don't
Yeah.
require you to show you.
Baxter is a minor celebrity.
Yeah,
our hero.
he's always on. Yeah.
Oh, now I have one student that always has a snake.
Oh, really?
She had a snake and she would
Like
bring
holding
out.
it? Like,
Yeah.
oh,
and
yeah,
she had a lizard, she didn't bring the lizard out. I was always like, that is enough, put it away. Like, I don't need a snake.
I
It's
know,
like-
I hate that.
Oh, I'd get so upset with her. I'm like, that is not. Liz, are you back? Liz?
Oh, there she is.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi,
Yeah,
Liz.
back.
Oh, you're on, I think you, I can't hear you.
Are we better?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I thought I texted Jamie and said I need to stay awake, step back for a sec, but.
Yeah, we did.
yeah,
We're just,
some random person got that
You're back.
text message, I don't know.
No, we were waiting. for
we're
you.
waiting.
We were just talking about dogs. Animals.
Okay, I'm back.
okay.
Marty was gonna talk, hold on.
No, you're all right. Go ahead. No, go ahead. We waited for you.
We're talking about the sped stipends during the caucus.
Yes.
And so this was kind of our train of thought. When we first had kind of seen the proposal from the board, we were excited and worried. The excitement was that, oh my gosh, yes, these teachers really do need that stipend. Yes, we need fabulous educational teachers, special ed teachers to work with these students. Yes, you know, working with special ed students takes a very special person, and we want the very best, very special people we can get. We are glad that they are acknowledging these facts. Our concern is that by like splitting the low incidence behavior and the interrelated, that you're kind of splitting the sped department, especially when not every building has a low incidence behavior room, so that those interrelated teachers are dealing with low incidence and behavior in their buildings, because their building does not have a room for those students. And so, you know, you could have teachers feeling like, well, I deal with the students, but I don't get that stipend, which is why our initial kind of thought was to not split those. So we were kind of our proposal for the sped would be for all low incidence and behavior and the sped teachers to go, instead of from 4 to 6, to kind of take the middle road on that, since the board proposed a 4 to 8 and then a 4 to 6. Would it be possible to go from 4% to 7% for those two groups and to keep them together? And our other thought is on ESSER. I'm glad that you guys were able to check into a couple of the different districts around the area that were given, that are going to be allocating ESSER 3 funds this way. You know, our thought is that we asked for, our proposal was $1,200 per teacher, which is a little under $400,000 total. If we did 330 teachers or 330 classified employees. Currently, my numbers for the district are getting about $2.7 million in ESSER money, or ESSER 3 money specifically. So that still leaves a little over 2.3 million in ESSER 3 money, which is why we were hoping that the district would acknowledge the importance of keeping and retaining those teachers that we're going to have this year, and really hope that the board looks more at the ESSER 3 proposal.
Okay. Let me do some calculation on the sped stipend.
Yeah.
I would say at this point, we would like to hold off on the ESSER. I don't know that we all feel like we have a good enough grasp to say yes, no, or otherwise. And that's not a no, but it's a I don't know, if that makes sense. There's a possibility, and I know not unlike what we did with ESSER 1 last year for teachers in December, that can still be done. I don't know that we can give you an answer on it right now. Okay, so it's a maybe. I don't know, and I think that we need to get more input from other folks before we can say anything as far as that. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Marty, if I may, I think personally, as far as ESSER funds go, I think it's one thing for Sherry and I to sit at the negotiation table and hear those requests or asks, but to me, that's a big enough item that we would want to take that to full board, likely do an executive session and just make them aware of the ask. Or, I mean, if we're at that point, we would probably need their, I mean, I'm one of now 5 people. We probably need a little bit more.
We need more information.
Yeah, information and sort of direction from the rest of the board. I have no idea what they would support for something they probably don't know a whole lot about it yet either.
Right, because I believe the budget is still being developed on that, so I want to see what.
So that's why, like Marty's like, I don't really know enough about it to
Yeah.
be
And
one way or
and
another.
I totally understand that. I would not like for us to come to a tentative agreement on everything and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden not pass board votes. It's not fun.
We've all been there.
It's
Yeah.
not a good time.
Yep.
And so that's never good. So,
And if there, Liz, if there was one item to do it, that would be it, because it's such a large number. Full board needs to, I mean, we've got to delve into that probably before we bring, I can't even personally sit here at the negotiating table and talk about that because I don't know enough about it to really bring it to you guys and start making deals on something. I mean, that's a bucket of money. I don't even know what that looks like yet. You know, if that makes sense. Not only how much and how it can be used and all the restrictions, ramifications, and what impact that would have. Not trying to be
totally
dark about it, just we don't know enough about it.
And like Marty said, it's not like we're saying, no, absolutely not. It's like, we
Right.
just don't have the information to use it as a negotiating item at the table at this moment.
No, we totally understand and respect that position. I just wanted to throw that out as a reminder again. I didn't expect, honestly, for you guys to have an answer on that tonight.
Okay. Salary and salary schedule. And I think we're both in agreement as far as step and column. So that's the easy part. The $15 more per month will end up costing the district roughly $72,000. What we would be able to do, and I'll have a little explanation here at the end. Our best that we can come up with as far as a dollar amount would be 1,500 on the base and cells. We still want to put the 300 on BA and BA 12. That extra 100 would make up for the 75 on the MA 45Z that you guys had suggested, and go from 184 to 186. The range on a daily rate for a teacher over 184 days has been roughly $220 a day to $330. And if you look at the offer of 1,500, that gains you $250 for each one of those days from the 1,000 that you guys initially threw out. I think it puts us in a position where we are more competitive. I think it hopefully it certainly allows you guys the opportunity to know that the board appreciates all that you do. But I will tell you that at $1,500 per cell, we're going to have to come up with money somewhere. We'll have to figure something out. But I think that it's important enough and valuable enough. The 2 days are for kids. You know, they benefit students, and that's why we're all in this. That's our mission. And the $1,500 would be the most that we can come up with the $15 more for insurance, and the 300 on BA and BA 12.
Oh, did you guys look at the sick leave sharing?
I'd say we get through this other stuff, and that one may be an easy one that may be the cherry on top of the sundae.
There's no more than 10 minutes, right? 5, 10?
Yeah, almost 6:30. Yep.
And there's chocolates.
Jill, there's
Snap that.
Okay. I think the last thing we had thrown out was the 1,500 to 300 on the BA and BA 12, the $15 to raise it to 430 for health insurance. And that the caveat is the 2 extra days.
Okay. We have a counter on that. Well, I have a question. Did you guys, were you able to talk about or think about the 7% on this bed?
We're still mulling it over.
Okay. Our counter is the 2 days, the insurance, like you had discussed, the 7 lateral, keeping the BA and BA 12 like you have proposed with the $300 in each step and 1,600 other days.
Okay. And here's what I will tell you. The money that we have that we think we can allot easily for salaries, if when we go to 1,500 means that we've got to come up with $279,477 that we're not counting on. So when I tell you 1,500 is truly our final offer, I'm not kidding. It is genuinely the absolute best offer that we could make. So I guess my counter would be to go back to the offer that we have at 1,500, the 300 on each one of the BA and BA 12, and the $15 on health insurance. The extra percent on the SPED ends up probably costing us an additional $66,000.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Of the 7%.
For the-
Additional?
yes,
For the 7%.
7% versus 4. Right, not 6 to 7, but 4 to 7 costs an additional $65,950.
That was everyone getting 7% versus the 4 to 6 and 4 to 8.
Correct.
It's not additional, up to.
Well, that we aren't paying now because right now it's 4%.
And at 4%, it's what, 50, what did we start at?
It would be 0 because to go to 6% and 8% was going to cost us about $55,000. Because the 4% is already figured in, it's all part of the calculation. It's the additional dollars being spent.
For additional 11,000. in your first.
That could be, yeah,
That's what, yeah.
right. Yes, yes, 66, all right,
6 to 4 to 8
yes. An additional $11,000 for the percent.
for everyone to get.
You've been doing it for a while, Marty. We got you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Sorry.
Just, the bad thing is I can neither read my screen with my glasses or
I know,
without
I
them, so
can't- I
I'm-
can't hardly see.
I'm kind of at a,
I know.
Okay, well, it seems like both sides still have some stuff to consider.
well,
Um,
and I don't disagree, but I can tell you that the most that we can do is the 1,500. I would say that with the $11,000 difference, if it would help move us off center on that, I would say we could do the 7%. If you guys agree to the 1,500, the 300 on the 2 columns, 15 on insurance, and the 2 days. That's a little horse trading right there.
But just to clarify, should we settle salary and spend tonight, we would still need to have another meeting, at least one more meeting, correct?
Right, probably just to clear up all the other extraneous stuff.
So.
And then that would give the board the chance to discuss that.
Right. Right, we would want the board to be able to make sure that they're good with everything too. And just as a point of clarification, I know that we've talked, part of the discussion on the ESSER funds. Auburn Washburn used ESSER 2 funds is what they're using for that, not ESSER 3. Some of the information for ESSER 3 is still evolving. I don't know of anybody that has done all of that. ESSER 2 they have, and I know that's what ESSER 2 is what Auburn Washburn is using. Our district is using close to $1 million in ESSER 2 funds for curriculum. And these are ballpark numbers, so don't hold me to the specific dollar amount. About 250 or 260,000 on summer school, and probably about another $40,000 to $50,000 for a reading specialist at the secondary level, is how the funds for ESSER 2 for our district are being allocated. So anything that we would need to do would be ESSER 3. And that's part of where I think our confusion too is. We're still waiting on ESSER 3 stuff. And we don't have all that information. Does that make sense?
Well, they received an incentive last year as well for $800. When we got the 500,
Mhm.
they received 800, and they're also getting additional this year as well.
Correct.
And
They used ESSER 1 money for that last year, and they're using ESSER 2 money for it this year. We used ESSER 1 money for it last year. This year, we have ESSER 2 money that's going towards curriculum, summer school, and that reading specialist position, is my understanding.
That's correct.
Did you happen to check to see which money Lawrence or American was using?
I don't know, no. I know Brian pretty well at Auburn Washburn, so it's easy for me to get hold of him, and
When it was in
he
the
shares
email,
information.
actually, when we went back and looked at
Yeah.
his letter to us, it was actually in there, said ESER 2. We just didn't look at that till later.
But again, that doesn't mean that something can't be done with that anywhere down the road. We just don't know enough about the ESSER 3 stuff at this point. That's an evolving thing.
Okay, can we talk this for about 5 minutes?
You bet. theater department, they've got something like, the Queens and they have the,
Honestly, this is really awful.
well, if it's any consolation, you're in your normal spot.
I am. Well, I mean, I'm glad they put me there, but this is just, it's really awful. It's harder to concentrate. It's just, this is not ideal at all. But I'm glad we could still keep the meeting, which is
Absolutely.
in everyone's best interest to be able to.
You bet.
So we'll make it work. So right now, we don't feel like we have a counter or a agreement on the salary. We started talking, and honestly, we feel like a lot of what we have proposed is still hanging out in the air, or the board has said no. Discretionary, disciplinary, we still have sick leave hanging out there in the air. We're not super thrilled with the direction that the ESSER conversation is going. And so we kind of just want to think about the current proposal. We know that, it's from good faith from the board and from you guys. We just feel like we want to take a step and look at everything that we have proposed so far and just kind of look at everything overall, including the salary. But we would like to set a meeting for a date for the next meeting.
You bet. James and Sherry, I'll let you guys look at calendars to see when you think.
How much time do you think you need, Liz?
Well, it's really, it's kind of up to you guys. We've heard a lot of, well, we should talk to the board about this. We know you guys need to look at the sick leave that you got tonight. We really appreciate the board and people looking more at not discretionary, well, discretionary, yes, but also disciplinary. So I don't know what your guys' schedule is. What we have appreciated is that I feel like we've had a good conversation back and forth tonight. No matter if I'm on a screen, I just think that our conversations tonight have been very positive and going in the right direction. And we wanted to say how much that was appreciated. So, I know we can't meet the rest of this week because of people's schedules, and my team can't meet next week.
And the following week, I'm on vacation. And then we've got
And then-
to school.
You guys have a board meeting on the 9th.
Yes.
I'm back on the 29th.
I was on a week, but I'm certain you do it without me.
You're not back.
Well. You see my excitement. I kind of forgot actually. But I can think of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you'd have to be a lot closer before you do a special meeting. You would want to be pretty baked by then.
Yep.
You wouldn't just do it to chat. You'd want to have it. I mean, you might as well be voting at that point, frankly. to take
Right.
The offer and settle and all that. But yeah, the 9th is, that's 4 weeks away, right? Am I doing that right?
3
3 weeks.
weeks,
One, two,
I mean,
yeah, 3.
weeks.
It sounds like you guys maybe the 30th.
Liz, can you the 30th?
James and Sherry.
Yeah, I'm good. 30. Sorry, I'm just carrying
I
my calendar.
can do the 30th, but much depends on COVID, but I may have like a giant event the next day. So I'll have to be, I don't know if I could be here the whole time. It would depend on how long we were taking and all of that, just.
I think
I mean,
that.
I like
okay,
to-
right.
We don't want to work less.
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
But
But
you're not in
I
town.
but
you're
I
out.
could just be available.
You don't want to come back.
Like they want
Oh, good, yeah, gotcha.
I
So if-
think I can do the 30th.
Okay,
I'm good 30.
Are we thinking
29.
afternoon? Or are we thinking-
what time works best for you, all
I
of
would
you?
have to do something a little later because I'm gonna be tied up during the day with my crew, getting things ready unless we have to call off, which I really hoping not, but
Mr. Adams,
Friday night with the negotiations crew, are you kidding me?
What?
Sign me up.
what is better than that?
What is better than that? Yeah, I'm good, whatever, 29th, 30th, I'm good, all those.
I can maybe do 4, I can definitely do 5.
I'm good with either one.
Preference? Luke's going, I'm not gonna be here anyway. It doesn't matter to me.
I can't, I.
You can get Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we'll do it on the plane. Zoom on the plane.
Yeah,
I'm good with either.
30th get us more people, is that what I'm hearing, or no?
Yeah, I think we. can
30th
do-
gets us more people than let's try.
Let's do it.
Let's,
Just do it.
you want to shoot 4 o'clock?
Works for me.
I can make 4 work.
And meet in here again?
If you guys will have it.
We will have you. Of course, I walked in here today and Megan had set up for new teachers for tomorrow. So it's a little different than what it was. So I'll be working on that here in a couple minutes.
Do we all have to hang out?
No. Yeah.
No, I
No,
just
yeah.
brought that.
Yes, yes, Jill. And they specifically asked for Heath bars.
I just brought these because I was hungry last time.
No. Okay. Anything else that you guys can think of? Okay, 4 o'clock on the 30th. If you've got questions, Liz, as always, just give me a holler.